It is of course time for the big one, the post-World Championship qualifiers BANLIST for both Speed Duel and for Rush Duel. Hopefully, fingers crossed, there's some good changes because this is our last BANLIST, I believe, until post-Worlds, right, in August. So hopefully they fix some things about the format, right? I believe Speed Duel was mainly Shadows and Utopia, some FTKS going on. Rush Duel, of course, was a tier 1 Light Galaxy metagame with some Dark Galaxy here and there, some Chaos builds, but mainly it was Light Galaxy, and so there are no skill changes, and that's probably because we're getting a crop update on the 17th, I believe, and so it is a bit too close for them to kind of put those skill changes together, code them all in, and have them ready. We'll probably see a skill balance announced past 26th. It'll go into effect on the 1st for PvP, and then mid-July, it happens for PvE. I hope that's what they do, but let's see. Let's go in. First of all, is going to be Cannibal Turtle for Speed Duel being banned. This is a huge change, and one that should have happened, I believe, like 2 years ago now, right? We saw before, it was actually when the OCG and Marstal banned Cannibal Turtle, and we were like, okay, they've pre-banned in those formats, but they've not banned in the one format else actually causing terroring. And so now, finally, it's gone. It's a good thing it's gone. I'm sure our Yu-Gi-Oh! Will find some other way to FTK. I look forward to it. Then Limit 1 is Reshadol, of course, is a big one because it was played at 2, but also it takes Supoli out of that deck. Now, I believe also the skill for this does need a certain amount of trap cards in the graveyard. I believe, I'm not too sure, so this might mean you've got to play some weird ratios of cards you don't really want to play. So we'll see how that kind of has an effect. We've got Sonic Jammer, of course, is going to be the spell lock. So again, if you place your opponent's turn, then it's shutting them down for a turn. Not great card design. Guard Dog, this was the big one, of course. Locking out special summons, and Wind Weasel, and that's it for Limit 1s, and no Limit 2s. That's interesting, because I believe the Speed Limit 2 section is like the holding ground for certain themes. So going straight to Limit 3, there's no Utopia hits so far, right? Aside from, again, the FTK, right, that's good, but in terms of, like, pure Utopia, there's nothing really yet, so maybe Limit 3s will come in clutch. Let's find out. First of all, is Exceed's Gift and Exceed's Change Tag. So this one, of course, is for the Utopia FTK, and this one is very similar, but I don't believe this one was seen play. So this one's kind of like a preemptive hit, right? They know that, you know, if you hit this one, you're probably going to find an alternative, and this one is probably close enough, but it's not as good because you are using those materials that you would be using for negates. So I think that, like, it's a change they kind of had to make, or they're forced to make. This card, I said, like, when it first came out, I said, you know what, at some point it'll be really good, and it seems Konami kind of agree, but it took a couple of years to get there. We've then got Reshadol Wendy going to 3. Now, this removes any Limit 3 back row from the deck. The problem is, I don't recall them really playing much Limit 3 back row. So we'll have to see from the top KC Cup decks, right, and see what was actually, like, the changes actually matter. But to me, this doesn't really scream a huge change. In particular, I think the bigger one, of course, is going to be that Limit 1 on the Resh, right? That one's going to be massive. But this Limit 3 on Wendy doesn't really feel that big. We'll have to see. Then, Unlims, Shu. Okay, that's big. Now, the one thing I have, like, against these limit, you know, these bundle cards, right, going to Unlimited, is that we've seen with Tour Guide that they can easily go and put them behind a paywall, right, and then not really plan to release them otherwise. So there could be a universe where Shu is paywalled if we get even more support for Dragon Maid. So I don't really want to see that, but it is cool. It's now limited, of course. The Wolf Rat wasn't seeing play, but I believe it's probably going to be good in Fleur, so a nice little buff to that one, of course. And also as long as China with getting Baron, right, that one's crazy, but still a nice little buff if you do want to play this in your build. Then we've got Hidden City for Subterrace. I believe this was Limit 3, I want to say, or maybe Limit 2, one of those two. Okay, not a deck I'm the biggest fan of facing, but sure, it's probably fine. Nadir Servant is very funny because it's still paywalled, right? And so this reasoning here of promote diversification is a bit weird because people aren't playing it, not because, you know, it's Limit 3, but because it's paywalled, and so most people can't really afford the card, don't want to go to box that card, and also it does kind of tie nicely with, of course, the Albaz anime, Chronicles, getting that in June, so you can see why they would be kind of tempted to perhaps bring this out now, maybe return the selection boxes, right? I don't think it really matters, this one being 3 unlimited, I'm not too sure. Then compulsory, okay, so are we just going to be returning all limit 3 traps to unlimited, right? Are we saying the format is now like so fast and that back row doesn't really matter that much? Why are we beyond that now because you've got Utopia, right, putting out multiple negates on turn 1, doesn't matter. Launcher, okay, that's pretty big for Infernity, so I believe that must be all of them unlimited now, right? That's got to be the whole deck kind of free. We'll check in a minute. And of course, Foul, the Salamangreats. This is the back row one, right? Yeah, sure. Okay, they kind of fell off with the skill change, with the overhits on the ban list, and so a bit of a course correction is perfectly fine. We've then got Rush stuff. We're going to kind of pause, go to KC Cup and see, is this going to matter? First of all, Global Rank 1, playing Shadow. We've got Rain of Shadows, which does require 3 random Shadow normal trap casts from deck to graveyard. So they were playing like a lot here, to be fair. So I actually think like this build here, it doesn't really matter with the skill. Of course, the big thing is, you know, you are losing out on Resh. You are losing out on Supoli. That's a good thing. But the Wendy makes no sense, right? There's no limit 3 back row, so that change made no sense. There's a lot of decks here, right? Again, limit 3 on Wendy, no back row limit 3. So that didn't make sense either. Again, Shadows, Gardag of course is a big one. They're now losing, that's a good thing. But again, limit 3s. Wendy was just a baffling decision to kind of make. Have we got a Utopia build anywhere close to here, right? Well, Speedroid, which didn't really see a big change, right? Utopia, in terms of the pure variant, right? Playing the deck how you probably should be playing it. No changes. And that does kind of also mean the Lava Golem builds that have been kind of going on in ranked duels at the moment are not hit as well. So it's still going to be a not very fun metagame to kind of play around in, but that FTK is kind of gone. Now, if another FTK exists, we'll have to kind of, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But again, this limit 1 is the big factor for Shadows, Ryan. So we'll see how that kind of all works out. Ancient Gears, of course, no hits to that one. Do we have an FTK deck on here? I think we did, right? I'm sure there was some FTKs that topped in the KC Cup. Right, yeah, okay, of course. Cannibal Turtle, they changed tactics. I can see a world where you perhaps do still, you know, you are supposed to do this, right? You maybe lose out on Into the Void, but I'm sure someone's going to invent something, right? Because Cannibal Turtle wasn't the only thing that was FTKing, the only way to FTK in Duel Links. It was never just that, so we'll have to see. But anyway, let's go back to Duel Links and go to the Rush Duel side, which of course can be very interesting because, like Galaxy was tearing things up. Let's see, first of all, Limit 1, Compulsory. That's very funny when you've got unlimited Compulsory for Speed Duel, but Limit 1 for Rush Duel. So now you've got to choose between Compulsory or Negate Attack, or literally any other back row in Duel Links, right? Any trap card is on Limit 1, which is very, very funny. Pot of Greed also going to 1. Right. Okay, that's a big change for basically every deck in the game, because now you can't play these two, which was the go-to combo, right? So now you're probably going to be going either Compulsory or Negate Attack and, say, Hammer Shot or Pot of Avarice, or you're going Pot of Greed plus Trap Hole or Widespread, which would kind of work into promoting the protection effect, I believe, of Oblivion. So that's kind of a mini buff in a way for like Galaxy. We've then got Santa Cloth, which I wasn't too familiar with in Duel Links, right? Obviously in Rush Duel, it was its own deck at one point in time, but of course it was the main culprit for the Milling Your Opponent Out deck, and I think that not that prevalent, right? But it still is like a just kind of remove people's enjoyment from the format, and I think that hitting it does make a ton of sense, even if it wasn't really that popular. We've then got Dark Hole Device, right? So this was Limit 2, I believe, going to 1. This now clashes, of course, with your Pot of Greed and your Compulsory and every other Limit 1 trap card in the game. So for Dark Galaxy, you are now kind of forced onto keeping this basically, right? Because that board nuke into an OTK is so good, and it's, you know, why Dark Galaxy feels really, really bad to go against, right? Because you could be playing the game so well, and then your opponent just goes, you know what, Dark Hole Device, I win. Compared to even like Galaxy, in which point you kind of feel like there's more back and forth there, you have more ways of dealing with what your opponent's going to do. So I like the change. It does now mean that for Legend cards, right, you are going to be moving on to Hammer Crush, to Trap Hole or Widespread. Probably Trap Hole, because again, Widespread is not that great against Oblivion, But if Galaxy does get hit even more, then Oblivion maybe won't be that prevalent. We'll have to wait and see. And then, that's it. So, like Galaxy, that can abuse these two as well, got no Limit 1 changes. That's a bit concerning. That's a bit concerning. Again, that is Udis's deck, right? He's the pro tag. The Worlds, being able to say Go Rush's ace deck and Seven's ace deck are both really good, would be, you know, good for marketing purposes, I guess. Not sure how to feel about that one. This also does hit basically every rogue deck as well, because every deck was playing this combination. That's a big shakeup, right? That's a big shakeup. We've then got Limit 2 with Magical Miracle, which the description here kind of reads like they're going to be hitting more Psychic stuff, which I don't see them doing because Psychic haven't done nothing, so maybe it's a missed, like, communication, and maybe it just means that we now want you to be able to play someone's Limit 3s, right? So maybe that makes sense. This could have gone to Limited, right? Just straight right Psychics are doing nothing since the skill nerf and since the, of course, the introduction of way more heavy OTK decks, right? So we'll see if it does anything. We've then got Limit 3, and this one is going to kind of make or break the Light Galaxy deck, Dark Galaxy deck. Let's see. We've got Trans Am Klein. So this now shares a spot with Execute Your Riding, of course, with the Secret Order spell, and so you were seeing people play, I believe, 3 and 3 of Order and this. The skill, of course, does give you Order as well. There were some people cutting this entirely, or cutting Order entirely, or playing, you know, 2 and 3, so I can see you going to 1 and 2 and not having too big of a downside, right? So, like, it's a good change, right? But alone, I don't think it's going to be super duper enough. We'll see. Void... Okay. So, this really seems to be them getting out of the Chaos build, right? But more so that... No, wait, no, they have Chrysaor on Limit 3. Okay, Dark Galaxy. And that's... Wait, look, there's the bar. So, in terms of, like, good hits, Light Galaxy got a fairly slight tap on the wrist, but Dark Galaxy, they got way more of a nerf, right? Because they've got Chrysaor, they've got the Star Trance, they've got this now at Limit 3. They've now had to reshake their entire Legend lineup, right? With Dark Elder going to 1. So, this now becomes more Saki, I guess, which it's fine, right? Dark Galaxy was the more annoying deck to play against, right? Out of the two, but Light Galaxy, if you look at the case cup results, was a way better deck, right? And so, it just seems kind of, I don't know. We'll have to see. Let's see on limits, right? Innovator, that's really big, right? You can now play this in decks you couldn't play Cyber Dragon in, right? So maybe Light Machine gets better, of course. Magnum Overlord could also now have some fun shenanigans with this, right? That'd be pretty cool if that does kind of change things. This, to me, kind of hints at we'll get the alternate art in a selection box fairly soon, right? That's what that screams to me, right? Is give this in a selection box. That'd be neat. XQT Riding going unlimited. Right, so that's quite big because you've now removed one of those downsides, I guess, from Dark Galaxy. This, prior to release, right, was really hyped up by basically everyone as being like a really good thing to come to the game. And then the format evolved into this not being that relevant, right? And so now being limited does mean that it gets more relevant for decks like Galaxy, for Dark Galaxy, for Spellcaster doesn't change much, for, I guess, Yamrula, it changes things, for High-Tech Dragons, it changes things, for Psychic, it changes things, for Gaia, it changes things, which is, you know, a big deal, but they really don't like trap cards aside from the Ultra Rare they sold you in the last box. Okay, I think that's fine, right? It does free up that slot for things, again, also like, Water, right? The Water deck, right? That was a rogue deck that has the Granagas, right? I believe it is at Limit 3, right? That also gets freed up for this one. So this does help out rogue strategies, right? That's really cool. And because of the changes to the current meta strategies, it now helps them as well. So it helps everyone. Okay, there's Granagas. Konami even thought that, you know what, this card being at 3 is a little bit of a bit of piss taken. So now it is unlimited. Will it do anything? No. Is the deck now better for it? I guess. We've then got Fortitude going to unlimited as well. This should have happened a long time ago. This is a really cool card for dragons that aren't doing anything right now at all. They've also fallen off a cliff because, again, the OTK decks we have right now are way, way better than anything Dragons can kind of put up with at the moment. And Meet and Greet as well is again another OTK tool, but pales in comparison to, again, every strategy I have right now. So, and that's it. So Rush Duel and Duel Links is going to stay as its OTK format. Dark Galaxy, way more than they probably should have been, right? They were the more annoying deck again, but Light Galaxy are still going to be the tier 1 threat. Unless, of course, the new box of Yuka coming in will change things drastically. We'll have to wait and see. So, if we go to the top 100, right, looking at Light Galaxy here, right, this first one here, of course, right, you are cutting out some of these, right? The Legend ones are the big changes, but you are going to be losing, you're going to maybe, 1 Klein, 2 orders, or 3 orders, 0 Klein. That could happen. The Chaos build as well also kind of got hit in the crossfire, right, with the Void Corridor and the device as well, so does kind of shut down that build as well. Rank 3 was playing 3 and 3. Rank 4 was playing no Klein, but 2 orders, so you can easily splash in a Klein here and go 1 and 2. And this person would be doing equally as well as they would have been doing otherwise. So, I really think Light Galaxy are still going to be the best deck. Right, again here, right, you're losing out on 1 card here, and then yes, your Legend lineup is changing. And Pot of Greed is like really important for the deck as well, for draw power, but also that compulsory is really big because you're not going to be playing into mirror matches with Oblivion that can make itself protected from widespread. So I feel like Light Galaxy is going to go to compulsory and then go to Hammer Crush. Again, this one here was playing no Klein, so but it was playing tight Rush Terrace, right? So they are going to have to do some rejigging. There are some weird, questionable changes, right, on both formats. Wendy being the big one for Speed Duel, for Rush Duel, I guess, that the overhits on Dark Galaxy compared to Light Galaxy. We'll have to see how things kind of shake up, of course. There is a brand new box coming with Yuka later this month for Rush Duel, so things might change naturally then. The baseball deck isn't that great, right? It's years old compared to the fusions we have right now. So there's got to be some really big pushing with a skill to make that deck work, or whatever else we get in the box. Maybe it's going to be some Metarion stuff, maybe it'll be some more Rebels, or some Nord Power support for Maddox, right? That's got to kind of shake things up a bit going into July, so we'll see. We'll see. It is just it's a bit of a, it's a weird one. I'm not too like 100% on where my thoughts are with this ban list, but yeah, Innovator comeback is really cool. Riding is going to be pretty fun for rogue decks, but we'll see. We'll see. Again, this is going to change things a lot, right? We now have a whole heap of Legend cards at Limit 1. Every trap card but Riding is Limit 1 as well, and so for as much as things change in Rush Duel, Konami's hate of trap cards, it still stays the same. Anyway, thanks for watching. Adios.